Winning quietly is a specific skill, not the loud kind of winning, not the kind that announces itself, not the kind that requires an audience or a stage or the specific visible quality of achievement that is designed to be seen by everyone in the moment it occurs. The quiet kind, the kind that happens in the accumulation of consistent choices made when no one is watching, in the daily quality of someone who shows up for their own life with a particular kind of seriousness, in the unglamorous, unremarkable, nobody is applauding quality of just continuing, building, becoming. That kind of winning does not announce itself in the moment. It announces itself in the results. And the results, when they arrive and they keep arriving for you, produce a particular response in the people around you who have been watching without being seen to watch. I want to begin with the jealousy because the title names it, and jealousy deserves its honest examination rather than simply being used as a flattering backdrop. Jealousy is not admiration. It looks like admiration from a distance, has some of the same external features. Both involve paying close attention to another person. Both involve tracking what someone else has and what they are doing and what they are becoming. But admiration is organized around appreciation, and jealousy is organized around something more uncomfortable. The gap, the specific, daily, impossible to ignore awareness of the difference between where the jealous person is and where you are, between what they have produced and what you have produced, between the trajectory you are on and the trajectory they are on. A gap that, in the experience of the jealous person, does not simply describe two different life paths, but that feels somehow like a statement about their own. That is the specific corrosive quality of jealousy. It is not primarily about the other person. It is about what the other person's success says to the jealous person about themselves. Let me describe the secret watching because the title names it and it has a specific quality. People who are jealous rarely watch openly. Open watching would require acknowledging the watching, would produce the specific, uncomfortable social dynamic of someone who is clearly tracking another person's progress in a way that is visible to others. Who would have to own, in the owning of the watching, what the watching reveals about their interest in your results? So the watching goes underground. It becomes the quiet, consistent, private quality of someone who keeps track without keeping track visibly, who monitors in whatever forms are available, who maintains an awareness of where you are and what you are doing and what you are producing that exceeds what ordinary acquaintanceship or casual interest would produce. Not because they want to support what they are watching, but because they cannot stop watching. That inability to stop is its own specific thing. And I want to speak to why you keep winning, because the title states it, and the why is worth examining honestly. You keep winning because of something internal, not luck, not access, not the specific externally granted forms of advantage that can be attributed to circumstance or timing or who you know, something that originates in you, in the specific, consistent, comes from character quality of how you approach the things you commit to. The people who watch you from the outside tend to look for external explanations for your results, for the specific, identifiable, not about who they are quality of advantage that would make your results attributable to something other than the consistent internal, just the way they operate quality of how you actually produce what you produce. They keep looking. They keep not finding a satisfying external explanation because the explanation is internal. It is the specific quality of someone who, when they commit to something, actually commits, who does not perform the commitment publicly and then privately invest partially, who does not start with intensity and then reduce when the intensity is no longer novel, who maintains the quality of their engagement with things across the full arc of the engagement rather than only in its exciting early stages. That consistency is unglamorous. It does not make for good content. It is the explanation for the results. That consistency is unglamorous. It does not make for good content. It is the explanation for the results. I want to give this more specific texture because I think the specific qualities deserve naming. The first is that you finish things. Not every person who starts things finishes them. The gap between starting and finishing is where most results are lost, where the initial energy runs out and the novelty fades, and what remains is simply the work, without the excitement that made starting feel natural. Most people in that gap make an adjustment, slow down, redirect, find a reason why this particular thing is not worth the continued investment after all. You tend to stay, not rigidly, not without the capacity to recognize when something genuinely needs to change, but with the specific, honest quality of someone who does not confuse discomfort with wrongness, who can be in the harder part of something without that being sufficient evidence that the something should be abandoned. The second is that you do not need it to be easy. There is a specific limiting belief that some people carry that produces a particular pattern. The belief that things that are right for them should feel easy, that resistance is a signal to stop. That difficulty indicates misalignment. This belief, while understandable, tends to produce a quality of perpetual beginning, of many things started when they were still easy and abandoned when they became difficult. You have a different relationship with difficulty. Not that you enjoy it, that you have learned to be in it without it meaning the wrong thing. To distinguish between the difficulty that is simply the nature of the work and the difficulty that is a genuine signal worth heeding, that distinction is worth more than most external advantages. I want to speak to something about the wonder in the title, why they keep winning, the wondering quality of the jealous observer. The wondering is genuine. It is not rhetorical, not a dismissive question designed to minimize your results. The specific, actual, I genuinely do not understand quality of someone who has been watching and who has not been able to assemble a satisfying account of the pattern they are observing. Why does this keep happening for them? The wondering is the specific, honest confusion of someone who is looking for external explanations for internal results, who is applying the wrong analytical framework to the thing they are trying to understand, who is asking what circumstances or advantages or access are producing what they are seeing when the actual producer of what they are seeing is not any of those things. It is simply you, being who you are in the full, consistent, applies the same quality of self to everything quality of someone who has done sufficient internal work to know what they are doing and why, and to bring genuine investment to the doing of it. That is not mysterious, but it is not visible from the outside to someone who is looking for something else. Tell me in the comments whether you have noticed this watching energy in the people around you, whether certain people's engagement with your life has had a quality that exceeds what their relationship to you would naturally produce, whether the interest is slightly too precise to be casual, whether this reading is finding the right situation. I want to speak to what the jealousy costs the people experiencing it, because this is the piece that is most useful for you to understand clearly. Jealousy is expensive. In the specific, practical, opportunity cost quality of something that consumes the resource that building themselves would require, every unit of attention directed at watching you is attention not going toward whatever they would need to do to close the gap they find so uncomfortable. Every hour spent monitoring your results is an hour not spent producing their own. The watching perpetuates the gap, not as irony or as punishment, as simple mechanics. Attention goes where it goes, and what you give your attention to is what you develop. The person who gives their attention primarily to someone else's progress does not develop their own. This is not a moral statement about jealousy. It is a practical description of what jealousy produces for the person experiencing it. The gap that produces the jealousy tends to widen in proportion to the jealousy, because the jealous person's attention is in the wrong place. Because watching someone else build does not build anything for the watcher. You, meanwhile, are building without the distraction of watching someone else, which is one of the specific practical reasons why you keep winning. The gap that produces the jealousy tends to widen in proportion to the jealousy, because the jealous person's attention is in the wrong place. Because watching someone else build does not build anything for the watcher. You, meanwhile, are building without the distraction of watching someone else, which is one of the specific practical reasons why you keep winning. I want to add one more dimension to this because I think it is worth naming directly. The energy that jealousy requires is real, maintaining the watching, sustaining the awareness of someone else's progress, doing the specific continuous work of tracking what they are doing and comparing it to where you are. All of that requires cognitive and emotional resource that is being spent on something that produces nothing. That expenditure does not produce resentment in you. You are not expending it. You are allocating your attention to the things that are actually in your domain, to what you are building, to the specific, present, this is what today requires quality of someone who is in their own life rather than in someone else's. That is not a moral accomplishment. It is simply what happens when you have enough of your own life to be genuinely engaged with. When your own building is interesting enough to hold your attention, the building holds your attention. And what holds your attention develops. The building holds your attention. And what holds your attention develops. I want to describe one more thing about the internal mechanics of why you keep producing results, because I think it is the most honest and useful thing I can offer. You have a particular relationship with the opinion of people who are not doing the work. Most people's effort is shaped, consciously or not, by the audience watching it. by what the watching produces in terms of feedback, by whether the watching is approving or skeptical or indifferent, by the specific ongoing quality of someone whose internal experience of what they are doing is partially constituted by how others are receiving it. Your effort is less constituted by that, not because you do not care what people think, because you have learned through whatever combination of experience and temperament and deliberate self development to use a different primary source for the evaluation of your work, your own standards, the specific internal, I know whether this is good quality of someone who has developed enough expertise and self knowledge in the things they commit to that the external signal is less necessary. Who can evaluate what they produce against what they know it should be rather than against what the watching seems to think. That internal calibration is one of the most durable forms of motivation available. External feedback fluctuates. Sometimes it reflects accurately what is happening, often it does not. Often it reflects the specific current preoccupations of the people offering it rather than the actual quality of what is being evaluated. Internal calibration does not fluctuate in the same way. It is simply the gap between where something is and where it could be, visible to the person who knows enough about the work to see the gap. You see the gap, and closing the gap is what you find motivating, regardless of whether anyone watching can see it. That is the final answer to the wondering. I want to speak to something about how you carry yourself in the presence of this watching. Do not perform for it. This is the specific instruction, and it deserves its full content. Because there is a particular temptation when you become aware that you are being watched to adjust the quality of what you are doing in the direction of the watching, to become, in some small way, conscious of being observed, and to let that consciousness change how you show up. That change is the cost of awareness of the watching. And it is a cost worth refusing to pay. What produces your results is the quality of your engagement when no one is watching. The specific, unremarkable, nobody applauds this quality of doing what you do in the full, genuine, not for an audience quality of someone who is doing it because it matters to them. Not because it will be seen, not because it will produce visible evidence of their competence or their progress or their worthiness, because it is simply what they do. That quality is what is producing the results that the watching is watching, and performing it changes it. Continue being unseeable in the ways that matter most. Let me describe what the pattern of your winning tends to look like from the outside, because understanding how it reads to an observer helps clarify why the wondering is as genuine as it is. It looks effortless, not because it is effortless, because the effort is not visible in the results, the specific invisible quality of effort that has been internalized. That does not require the performance of struggle to demonstrate that work is happening, that produces its results cleanly without the specific visible strain that effort often leaves as evidence of itself. People who have not done the internal work that produces this kind of effort do not know what it looks like from the inside. From the outside, it reads as facility, as natural advantage, as luck. None of those explanations are satisfying because none of them are accurate. And the failure of the explanation to satisfy is what produces the continued wondering. They will keep wondering. You will keep winning. The gap between the explanation they can find and the reality of what is producing your results will not close until they stop looking at you and start looking at themselves. I want to say something about the relationship between winning and being watched. Being watched does not change what winning requires. This is the simplest and most important thing I can offer in this reading. The presence of watchers, whether they are admiring or jealous or somewhere in between, does not alter what the actual work of producing results requires from you, does not add to the effort needed, does not subtract from it, does not make the necessary things more or less necessary. It is simply weather. The specific background quality of a context you operate in that is not really part of the operation itself. That is there as circumstances are there without being relevant to the specific internal between you and your own standards quality of how you do what you do. The watching is weather. You are the building. Buildings do not need weather to cooperate to be built. They are built by the people doing the building in whatever weather is present, and the building continues. Not because the conditions are always favorable, because the person doing the building understands something that the watching cannot see from outside, that the work itself is the point, that what is produced through consistent, internal, standard driven effort accumulates in a way that watching someone else never does. The watchers are watching. You are building. Those are two fundamentally different relationships to time. One of them produces results. As we close, I want to give you one image: the gap, the specific, growing, produced by two different qualities of attention gap between where you are and where the people watching you are. You, on your side of it, occupied with the next thing, with whatever the current stage of the building requires. With the ordinary, unglamorous, this is what it takes quality of someone who is in their work rather than in the watching of someone else's. And on the other side of the gap, the watchers, watching, wondering, still looking for the external explanation, still not finding it. Because the explanation is on your side of the gap and it is not available from the outside. It is the specific internal only produces from the inside quality of someone who has learned to do the work without requiring the watching to validate the work. That quality, Virgo, is why you keep winning, and it is yours, fully, not despite the watchers, simply regardless of them. That is the final thing worth saying, not as a comfort, as a description of what is actually true about how your results are produced and what sustains them. The watching is not the engine, you are. And engines that run on internal fuel are considerably more reliable than engines that run on external attention. Yours runs on internal fuel. It has for a long time. That is why you keep winning.